Good afternoon from the Research Cell, Dayanand Sagar University. I heartily welcome our guest for today's interview, Dr. Vanita Agarwal, CEO, LIS Strategic, hosted by Dr. M.K. Banga, our beloved Dean of Research, Dayanand Sagar University Research Cell. Today we will be discussing about the international collaboration opportunities that are there for the research and higher education sector with respect to the new education policy coming in. So before Dr. Banga starts with the question, I shall be giving a brief about the profile of our guest today. Dr. Vanita Agarwal is an entrepreneur, keynote speaker, and a physicist. She is CEO of LIS Strategic LLP, a higher education advisory firm, providing distinct solutions in terms of the Indian market to help international clientele understand and customize product and services as per Indian requirements like curriculum designing, mode of delivery, and most importantly, cost and legal compliance. The brand offers a 360-degree vision to its target audience, inclusive of universities, UG and PG institutes in any stream, business schools along with corporate training cells, and customized skill solutions as per HR requirements. Dr. Vanita is an alumna of Delhi University. She has obtained a PhD in electronic science, specializing in semiconductor device modeling and simulation from the University of Delhi. Having worked at Constituent College of Delhi University as an associate professor for more than 22 years, before joining as director, I acquired Consulting in 2016, a global investment banking company to handle international higher education partnerships and gained significant clients. She found a super specialized networking group of semiconductor device modeling and simulation group on LinkedIn in 2008. She has more than 4,200 members now, ranging from presidents, VP to research scientists, and enrolled PhD students from different companies like Intel, Qualcomm, Global Foundry, and University. The group is actively engaged among its members for the purpose of immediate knowledge transfer, quick access to openings in postdoctoral positions, research fellowships, conference, and guidance among members. As COVID-19 came into the Indian skies and lockdown was announced, she felt a deep connect with final year students waiting for placements and jobs. She designed and hosted free webinars for them, calling several industry experts on panel. The reputation of this heartfelt cause reached offshore too, with participants joining from as many as 12 countries for HR skills, webinars, and many seminars as well. She advocates anti-bullying policies in corporates and has hosted a webinar on dealing with bullying and lobbying issues. Keen on developing a platform for young corporate executives from different industries and backgrounds, she founded another forum, LS Forum, a professional development forum, and is publishing a fortnightly digital corporate magazine, Ensemble. Good afternoon, ma'am. A hearty welcome to you, to the research cell of Dayanand Sagar University, and we look forward to a very meaningful conversation which will benefit our stakeholders. Dr. Banga sir, over to you.
Madam, we have been discussing with a lot of education leaders about the new education policy and its implementation, the timelines, and the governance part, and the stakeholder view. A lot of things we have been discussing. However, we find a person who is into a lot of collaborations with the international universities. Then we thought we should discuss with you about the collaborations that a university can have with universities outside India for a fruitful discussions and also objectives. So in that context, I would request you to tell us about the possibility of having collaborations with the foreign universities.
Thank you, Dr. Banga, for inviting me to this platform. Thank you, Dr. Nirupma. It's a pleasure to talk on the core of our company, the core theme of our company, internationalization or globalization of higher education. And this is the major reform that has been introduced in National Education Policy 2020 for the first time in Indian higher education sector, which is a very big step. And I must tell you, I have been working on these clients, particularly globalization or internationalization with foreign clients for more than 2 years now. And we had a client for about 1.5 years now. We have been consistently working, and collaborations can range from, from having some courses from these universities, quality courses, faculty exchange, student exchange, research collaboration. So there are multifaceted collaboration opportunities with the university. And what we explored, that international universities are more than willing to come to India, because India is a huge company, a huge country, and people as such, education has a respectful value in Indian culture. So every Indian family wants to educate their children, and education is a minimum basic requirement for a family, for kids, for, and it is only the affordability that sometimes prevents families to send their kids to higher education. Still they try to find means as much as possible to educate their children and make them go to colleges, to higher education industry, colleges, to get some skill, some jobs, some education, and then they can transform into jobs. Because job is one thing which gives financial security to a family, to particularly poor families. So they feel if their child can educate himself or herself, he can be in a blue collar job or a white collar job, and we can, have a standard lifestyle within some dignity. So education and related job prospects. These two things are the basic things which every family in India thinks about. So when we talk to international universities, they are more than willing to come to India. But as you all know, previous policy were not having regulations or frameworks to welcome them. There are certain areas which were not well defined, and hopefully with NEP 2020, these will be now where there would be a regular framework. Now, when we talk about collaborations with Indian higher education, there are three things which are inherent. When we talk about collaborations, there are three things I would repeat. First is online. So you cannot, physically send all your students to foreign land. That include lot of costs. You cannot bring their faculty physically to India. So online education is an inherent part when we talk about collaborations, first thing. Secondly, digital technology. We need to have for these online courses a digital technology well in place. Thirdly, affordability. That is the major cost factor when we talk to international education leaders or education institutes or universities. In India, education is highly subsidized. We are giving education to our students almost at peanuts. Uh, Even a private university, a very well known, I will not take names, but a very well known reputed university is charging 3 lakh rupees per annum to provide undergraduation, and even lesser, half of it to provide a post graduation. So that is the cost factor. But when we talk to the higher education institutes in other countries, be it USA, be it Canada, be it Europe, be it Australia, their cost factors are very high. They charge good fees from their students, but their education system is different. The government provides student loans to educate students, and students repay their student loans. Parents do not pay student loans. So that is a different cultural value at all. And while in India, education of students is a responsibility of parents. So parents have to fund the student loans, or parents have to fund the student fees. So that is a difference, cultural difference, a big cultural difference between when we go from here to there and we try to bring them here. For them, these costs, if we ask them, okay, so and so university is willing to take your course in their system. First of all, the regulation was a big problem because, you know, dual degree is not possible, including a full course is not possible of an outer university. Abroad, a foreign university cannot open a campus here. Foreign university cannot integrate a course, degree course here in a parent institute. It cannot enforce a one full module here. So many barriers are already there. Hopefully with NEP 2020, these doors will be open and there will be a regular framework. So there is much more open scope and wide scope for internationalization now onwards. We have to see what kind of framework will come into picture. Because now government has only said top 100 universities of the world can come in India. And they have also put a cap that top 100 institutes of eminence from India can have collaborations with these universities. So basically you are saying top 100 stars of there and top 100 stars of where, and that's about it. So do we think that Indian public only goes to these 100 top institutes? We have to extend this cap to tier 1 colleges and institutes and universities of India to give, what is the purpose? To give this benefit of international collaborations to as many as Indians as possible. We cannot, you know, just cap it to IITs and IIMs. How many students are going to IITs and IIMs? So basically you want to cater it to only those few thousand students. That is not fair, first thing. So it will come, I think, it will come in phases. So phase 1 might be top 100. Phase 2 will come, extending it to a few more, and then phase 3 will come. So this will go, I suppose, in phases to see how successful it goes. IITs are already having collaborations with foreign universities in research, and they have some dual degree or some course integrations also already in place. You can see or check their websites; it's already there. So collaborations are going to open, and it can be, you know, some small course. For example, you can take 6 months course, a fully fledged skill based course. So I will give you an example. One of my clients who excel in online education, and they are being there for last 15, 16 years, and they have this health and safety program, which is well recognized in Canada and US, and they wanted to integrate it here in university system. So a 6 months complete module, if that can be done, that can be, and blended learning is open. They can give you program content, they can train your faculty to teach this program, and your faculty here take local classes for the enrolled student. And since this is a skill based, according to the national education policy, since vocational skill has find a place, this automatically comes as a standardized, already standardized program, which is already valid in jobs across US and Canada. So your students who take this course are already ready for the jobs in Canada and US as safety professionals. Then other collaboration can be you engage some of their faculty to give online classes to your students. But again, their charges for giving 1 hour lecture is much, much high than what we pay to our teachers in monthly terms. So cost factor is a big, big issue in between international universities and Indian universities. And when we talk about cost, then we must ask government to fund these institutes who want to collaborate with international universities, because funding needs to come. You cannot charge your students beyond a limit. A student will not like to pay 15 lakhs for an MBA here. He would say, I would rather go to US and be there on physical campus and pay, say, double the price, say 30 lakhs. Now they say top 100 universities, Harvard University, you take an example. Their summer school cost, including visa fee, including transportation, including accommodation, a 7-week course costs 10 lakh rupees. So if you are saying collaboration, you have to subsidize their education here, which is going to be a big challenge in implementation this factor. But hopefully government of India will work in creating, you know, twinning programs, which is dual degree programs, that when Indian institute collaborates with an international institute and they create a dual degree program, a mutual coordinated program, so that an Indian student who is studying in XYZ Indian institute gets a degree which has logo of both the institutes, a foreign institute and an Indian institute. For example, there are third parties. I will not again take the names. You must be knowing. They are giving free licenses. They are having free online courses or online courses with a minimum cost from the University of Princeton, from the University of Yale, from University of Oxford, University of Cambridge, and they say you enroll and you get a certificate, and that certificate bears the name of this third party and the name logo of the university which is delivering that course. If they tie up with, suppose, your university, they say we will give free licenses to say 500 students of your university. You please take this course or circulate this course among your students. And you say, okay, free licenses, okay, we will circulate. But what is your benefit? Your logo is not there on the certificate. It is purely that university's this propaganda or promotion. It is that third party's promotion. Where is the university, the local university benefiting? Except for that student will say that our university provided it to us free of cost. That's about it. But if you directly tie up with an university, an international university for a similar course, then your students gets a certificate with the logo of your university as well as that international university, and that third party is moved out of this tie-up or of this collaboration. And in that case, your university gets reputation not only in India among your students, because when they produce that certificate to their employers for lifetime, your university will get a name, get a visibility. While in the first case, your university is only on his biodata as undergraduate or a postgraduate, that he completed a undergraduation from your university or a post-graduation from your university. That's about it. But those skill courses which he has attained for that third party because of your university's facilitation will only give visibility for lifetime to those two parties, not to your university. So I feel it is better to have collaborations directly with the international university instead of going through such kind of third parties which are already have a collection of online courses and they are producing certificates, because that is not going to help you in long term. Collaborations can also be student exchange, which is already there. But if you collaborate with an international university taking their course into your stream, then, and if those courses are skill based, then as a part of curriculum, you can send your students for hands-on experience in their country in that particular industry. For example, I was talking about health and safety professional course. So my client is ready to, if you integrate that course into your system and your students enroll for that, they are ready to send your students to some industry in US or Canada to have few weeks experience as a safety professional, which will be part of this course and will get the equivalent certificate. So that's how the collaborations can be there. Then next comes a higher level. So this is all on the level of UG and PG. or MBAs or executive MBAs is new stream, which is very, very popular because working executives can enroll with executive MBAs of foreign universities in collaboration with local Indian university. That is another big, big stream. You must be knowing that one of the IITs have launched an executive MBA and the fees is 20 lakh rupees. Yeah. And people are enrolled. It's full. Then research collaborations. Research collaborations are must with foreign universities. Why? Because global research, global standard of research is the most required thing for Indian research student or scholar. When I was doing research, you know, I enrolled in PhD in 1992, and I prepared my first paper on the based on some journals which were available, and no emails were then. There no emails or internet were existing. So we used to mail by post, normal post. It took 6 months. It took 6 months to get first reply. And feedback was very encouraging. Luckily, fortunately, that this paper is of original research value work. And then and there were some modifications required, and we resend it. After doing modification, I did the modifications within 15 days and resend it on the fear that it will again take 6 months. You know, and my first paper, though I prepared it in 6 months of my joining PhD, and the first feedback was that it is of original research value. Still, then it took more than a year to get that paper published in Elsevier publication. That was the case, and we were dependent upon what research, what latest research is being going on those monthly journals. And I remember Delhi University Electronic Science Department was relatively new that time, and few journals were there, and our research guide had subscribed few journals for us. I used to go to IIT Delhi and sit there in library for long, long hours to find relevant journals, latest journals, that what is the latest. Now, if I don't know what is the latest discovery or research has been done, how do I base my research on the previous one? Because if I send the paper again after 6 months, I will be, you know, told that this already has been done. So there is so much of lack of communication, there is so much of lack of value available, the knowledge available, information available, that when internet came, the first thing that I actually started doing was communicating with international laboratories, scientists, wherever it was. And you know, in the beginning years of internet, we all know there was very, very less information available because people had just started putting in information. And I also I was very fond of, as internet came, it was a new word. It was like I am roaming around in international world. So I was very fond of, and I learned HTML and I designed a website, and on which we invited people. LinkedIn is a bigger platform. It was something like small. So we invited scientists from all over the world to post their CV and post their queries so that a mutual group can discuss. That was the first step. That was somewhere in 98, 99. And then LinkedIn happened 2008 and we formed that group. And the purpose was that research information should be readily available. So if there is a group in similar area, so and research cannot be done in silos. Research cannot be, you cannot do research sitting in your room by all your own. It is a collaborative effect. So when a number of people sit together and discuss and uh, you know, then research happens. You cannot do just, okay, I think so, this should be done, or this is this way. There should be deliberation on what you are doing. Then only good research comes out. So the purpose is, the research opportunities definitely will be there with the universities, and our students should be able to go to foreign universities for having an hands-on lab experiments, research experience, theoretical research, uh, and that would, why we do not have any Nobel Prize winner in sciences. It has been ages, I suppose. In my lifetime, I don't know if I have learned of any. They are all forefathers like who got. Why? We are talented people, isn't it? So that is the, because our research are measured as per international standards. Unless we become a part of it, our research will not get value.
So, ma'am, we will be coming back into the next segment. The questions that we would like to understand, because this has been the precursor of things that were prevailing, which has ushered in the new education policy. In the new education policy, we are seeing a lot of research opportunities which are existing. I would like to know from you, or from the research cell, we would like to know from you in the next segment when we come back, what are the ways in which research universities, research departments like ours can really benefit from collaborations, and how professionals like you who have been academicians and your doctorates and you have been pursuing your postdoctoral studies, how do you think you could blend these two stakeholders for the benefit of everyone? So we will talk about this once we are back into the next segment. To understand from you, since you're handling many licenses, we were talking about 100 universities being the focus perhaps in the new education policy to receive collaborations. How does it pan out for research in general in the higher education sector? That is my first question to you. Secondly, if not the 100, what about the other universities or institutions?
So yeah, thank you, Anupma, for this interesting question. Research definitely would get a wider scope as this research collaboration opportunities with foreign universities is allowed and permitted, though it was there earlier also, but in a very limited sense, because very few government agencies were funding research opportunities. And first thing which I found was lack of information, ready information for research scholars. There could be several ways in which one can avail these kind of opportunities at individual level. But now, since Government of India has announced National Education Policy 2020, it is more on institutional level now onwards. And that is a good thing, because when it comes to institutional level, individuals do not have to worry about to get the information. It will be available at the institute itself, first thing. So there would be more motivation and inspiration and availability of resources, availability of information, availability of positions like postdoc positions, like projects availability, research associate availability, demands, all that information would be readily available, hopefully, if the institutions are proactive in providing, and because national education policy has emphasized that there would be two types of universities. One would be teaching incentivized university, but there also they have to provide research opportunities for their teachers. And second would be research incentivized universities, where research would be the prime focus, along with teaching will definitely would be there. So teaching research are going to be two facets now. It won't be just solely teaching, as per national education policy, which is very, very good step. Uh, and as you said, top 100, yes, I suppose solely top 100 won't do in such a huge country. I think Government of India has planned it in phases. That should be the way. And to start with, they have taken top 100 universities, because generally when we talk about top universities, they are already handling such license, such collaborations. They are well aware of how it should go. And these kind of collaboration can prove to be a model for other institutes to follow in following phases. So I think by the time, yeah, so I suppose by the time other universities get accustomed to the national education policy implementation, training teachers, and regulations well in place, by that time these models would be readily available to follow.
Okay, now that we are looking at more research focused, even at the 4-year level, we have the 4th year to be focused on research, and research universities coming in. India is a very interesting country for the international community, isn't it? You must have experienced this in your
Yes,
licensing. So, do you think that would encourage the international stakeholders to venture into India for Indian studies, scholarships, or collaboration with the research scholars? Is that going to happen beyond the 100?
definitely it is going to happen. And I will tell you, Anupma, not many people might be knowing about this factor. Leave about the legal framework of universities and the regulations. Many foreign students visit spiritual leaders
Hmm.
to complete their research about Indian culture, Indian mythology, Indian history, heritage, and so. There is no framework, is there? So I think time will come then when higher education will also have one spiritual guru for PhD, for facilitating PhD of foreign students, because international countries or foreigners, they perceive India as mystical land, a land of mystery, a land of spirituality, a land of, it's very different in culture, in thought processes, in its beliefs, in its faiths from rest of the Western world, if we should say. South Asian countries are more or less similar. But when we go deep, the basic faiths, basic beliefs are still the same. Youngsters do respect their elders and do take care of their elders in their old age, whether it is Western world or it is Indian world. Not much of difference is there. If you talk deeply, I have talked deeply with Europeans, with Canadians, with Americans. When we talk close on one-to-one basis, we come to know that cultures are almost all the same. There is no boundaries. Same way, exactly. The way we think, our values, they also think. It's only the practice which seems to be different. What we see them to be doing, we feel that it is very much different, and what they see us to be doing, they feel it is much different. And which is because of India has gone through so many phases. uh, there have been invasions, there have been British colony Raj of years, and we have seen so much, so but still we have survived.
So
And
do you think actually because of the you brought back a very interesting perspective which I was coming to, and which I've heard from many leading educational leaders, senior educational leaders, vice chancellors, pro vice chancellors, directors. Now the focus of the national education policy is going to be multidisciplinary and also going to focus a lot on Indian languages. So, do you think
yes,
there will be a lot of collaborations possible in areas which were not earlier possible, say for the basic sciences, the applied sciences, perhaps in the Indian studies? Like, for example, we might not be giving too much of interest to Sanskrit as a whole, but we do find Western nations doing a lot of studies on Indian culture, Sanskrit, Germany, some of these countries. So, do you think these are the perhaps the niche areas that collaboration can work out for international opportunities?
yes, I do think so, that there are so many niche areas where foreign students want to come and explore the Indian culture and mythology, as I again said. Languages, uh, I heard there is a full Sanskrit school in Germany where everybody speaks only Sanskrit. So yes, there are many avenues there, because once you open the door for international collaboration opportunities, there is a lot of opportunities within itself, and there are so many areas. And as national education policy also talks about multidisciplinary, and multidisciplinary is not only about defined subjects like social sciences, arts, humanities, languages. It's also about holistic development, like thought process, the mental attitudes, the faiths, the beliefs, the religions, the cultures, the diversity. Diversity in itself is such a huge subject to be studied in India. So many religions, so many communities, so many languages, they live together in harmony with each other. So unity in diversity, such a big area to explore. People get amused. How come? how come so many people just live together?
And talking about spiritual leaders and the affinity of the West to the Indian culture per se, do you think that the national education policy also needs to be discussed in the international forum to kind of sensitize even the international stakeholders about the
Yes, that
opportunities which are here?
yes, yes,
How,
that
how
is
do you
very, very
think?
important.
Mhm. So
That
how
is
do you
very, very important. Hmm. Please, please.
Yeah, how do you think the stakeholders like you, players in the field where you build bridges between the national players and the international players, how do you think you would like to take this forward and include us, say as Dayanand Sagar University? How can we take your help and support and leverage and synergize this opportunity going forward?
So first thing is, Dr. Anupa, I would say that first thing is definitely I'm going to work upon making a draft of national education policy, which is already announced as per international audience, highlighting the points obviously upon internationalization of education so that it can attract them. They should be aware of what new is happening in India and what are the opportunities for them to explore. So unless, because ultimately that comes to business, and unless we attract international clients, which is institutes and universities and some research project organizations, that yes, now this is the new scenario and you are welcome to explore the opportunities, then these things open up with talks. It does take time, but it opens up with mutual talks and mutual communication. So unless we present that uh, this is the new scenario and this is the latest development, uh, and try to attract their attention, try to attract their interest, that yes, you have now some opportunities to explore, definitely things will flow.
So, do you think that people like us from the university level, okay, administrators, faculty
Definitely,
members,
yes.
we need to, I think, come together with stakeholders like yourself. So, when you're making such a proposal, for example, you are not in Karnataka, right? And when we talk about Karnataka or we are talking about our own city, Bangalore, to be talking about, say, the universities in Bangalore, we know about so many things, so many nuances which can be explored with respect to the new education policy, multidisciplinary aspect, study of Indian aspects, study of skill based aspects. So, do you think you would also require our help in terms of developing the, although we talk about going global, the local possibility that is going to be there? Wouldn't you require our help to kind of explore that and build a document per se?
So it's basically customizing the solution. When
Yes.
we talk about two parties and we want to bring about collaboration between the two parties, it talks about a lot of customization that needs to be done. So we need to understand from our international client what kind of product or services they want to provide or they want to have. And similarly, for your university, then we will have your idea about in which kind of area you want to proceed, what kind of opportunity for collaborations you are looking forward for, what are the adjustments that you can do, what are the cost factors that you can afford. So this is a lot of customization that happens with both the parties. And when they come to the table finally after discussions and yes, we are interested in this product, they also say yes, this can be explored, then cost factors, legalities, these are all to be taken care of, which we talk to both the parties, and then things start moving in. But
So,
willingness needs to be there. Yeah.
okay. Now, when I'm talking about this building the partnership or putting forward the information, say our university being in a particular city, in a state, I'm not going to go directly into what is it in for us immediately. What I'm trying to say is, we as universities, we are centers where we are trying to create knowledge, disseminate knowledge, have a very inclusive approach to our society in and around the city and the state. So when we talk to you, or when I'm talking to you on behalf of the university, the research cell, I'm talking about a situation wherein something which is put across to the international community through you, or you are letting us know what is the opportunity available. We will not really talk about only ourselves. We are talking about the set of universities, set of multidisciplinary things that can be happening. We perhaps would collaborate, in fact, within a particular state and city, of course, the entire country. The collaboration, I think, is one of the key spirits of the national education policy. So collaborations would be seen among institutions, among universities also. So when we talk to you, or when we would be in a position to help you, do you think that in this now present state, where the new education policy is being discussed and trying to be understood, and even the formulators and the executors are thinking of execution, we should also be taking an active approach in terms of also identifying opportunities for international collaborations that can be made by listening with your help uh, from educators and administrators from the university level, without focusing too much on what do I get in a particular institution.
Exactly. So you correctly pointed out, collaborations are also holistic in nature. They are not like, you know, definitely in higher education, it is never give and take or sell and bought process. It's a holistic approach. So everybody has to see not only from the monetary point of view, but also from what benefits one is giving and one is taking. So it's kind of symbiotic relationship being developed, because they are not created for, it takes time to develop the collaboration ecosystem also. It is not a one day or few months. It takes time. So before you approach, you understand each other, you create those opportunities, you think about it, bring about the societal factors into it, and look at a holistic approach that will this symbiotic system be beneficial for both the parties and for the society as a whole, for students, for other universities surrounding. Definitely that makes a difference, and that is a process actually. You correctly defined it. You correctly
So,
defined it. Yeah.
yes, ma'am. So I think both universities, research centers, the entire educational sector, I think, has a lot of work to do with multiple stakeholders. Do you
Yes.
agree?
Multiple stakeholders, and it's a really, it's not one process. So you need to, study so many factors while you bring collaborations into picture. You have to study rules and regulation framework. Apart from that, affordability of the students, institutes affordability. If suppose you want to have a collaboration with a research project, whether you have that kind of staff who is available with your institute to work on that research project, to give his or her expertise on that particular research project. Then there is another factor, that the foreign university which is coming into play, they will also look for what is the benefit for them to engage your university with them. And before that, I would also point out, Dr. Anupma, that there are some universities who just want to go for, what they call it, decorative MOUs, uh, just to decorate their websites that they had done MOU with so and so university, which is not a good practice at all, because it creates a sense of disbelief and distrust. Higher education is all about trust. Higher education itself is built on trust, the basic foundation. So such kind of practices should be discarded and should be discouraged. Uh, and Government of India should also see, I would say, Ministry of Education, when they are implementing this national education policy, as I read through, accreditation levels would be there. And after a university or a college reaches a particular accreditation level, only then it would be allowed for a collaboration opportunity. So there would be stages. If you reach that particular level, then you can go for research collaboration with a foreign university. So their intention is to maintain the standard. So there should be some guards on that these kind of decorative MOUs are not taken. And if some MOU is being done, then there should be a watch what you did to accomplish that MOU. You wrote on paper, there would be a student exchange, faculty exchange, research collaboration opportunities, and you did nothing. out of it, except for putting on your website.
Yes,
That practice puts higher education sector in a very bad light before international community.
I think, in fact, that is, of course, it is a prevalent practice. But all the same, I guess, if I look at it from another perspective, ma'am, it's also perhaps the opportunity that was available was not really that much. That is why I feel that when I spoke to various experts and university leaders or institutional leaders, what came out across was what you have also been talking about, is the fact that we are trying to take advantage of India in its magnitude, in its depth, in the holistic values that it has. And I think everything is coming in, right from the Guru Shishya Parampara, the Gurukul system, to making sure people learn skill based things which can be useful in life. So there are various things, I think, which will make this system a little bit more flexible. The academic, the credit bank, the multiple entry and exit points, so which helps people to pursue different pursuits. So I guess some of these, yes, so-called collaborations which could have worked but did not work, I think we'll have better chances with more collaborations happening in different areas, perhaps which have more executability option, which is the key focus area. And I think the international space.
I would say, Dr. Anupma, being higher education institute, being the heads of higher education institutes, one knows what are the rules and regulations and where we can go and where we cannot go. So one should not barge into MOUs when you very well know that this is not going to work out. Intention should be there. If intention is there, at least student exchange or some kind of research collaboration can definitely happen. Research collaboration was not stopped. So some of your staff can go for postdoc position for some time to foreign university. That is not prohibited. Is that?
So
Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that is not. But yes, lesser
That is
said than
not.
done. Lesser said
Yeah.
than done. And but
So
I think
if the host university is not willing to fund that staff to go, because staff is not in a position to fund their visits and work and accommodation and all those things. So there is UGC who funds. I have gone abroad on UGC fundings, but one needs to pursue these things, and universities need to allow their staff to go.
So do you think grants funding will be a little bit more in
Yes,
focus
it would be a
now?
big challenge unless government supports a lot, and it is going to be a challenge.
Okay.
Because we are not charging students much, first thing. So incoming cash flow is less. And government is talking about, NEP is talking about free ships as many as possible, free scholarships to students as many as possible. Then they are talking about this creating ecosystem for best of the faculty, creating research opportunities, creating best of the digitally equipped classrooms. They say each classroom should be digitally equipped. So when you say each classroom, each means each. And they are talking about 3,000 plus students in each college. If you read NEP, it says very, very clearly that each degree granting accredited college should have 3,000 plus students.
Yes.
So when you are talking on that level, so how many classrooms for so many students?
How about
Even if you phase out through the day.
How about the research foundation and the funding part?
Funding part. So it means there would be a very much load on National Research Foundation. So there would be then slabs. There would be percentage that so many people from this institute can go or can get funding. There would be definitely slabs. Then there would again be a problem.
And
how about internal politics?
But how about getting into this part of the policy and blending it into the international partnerships? Do you think that
it has to be done? Because it has to be done. When you are expecting research collaborations and internationalization, because as of now, what I found, Though they have mentioned student faculty exchange, research collaborations, and opportunities, but main emphasis is on calling international students to Indian soil. That is the main emphasis because it will boost economy of nation. That is the purpose of internationalization of education. Rest of the things are still at the back seat.
So we look forward
Let
to.
us wait. Let us wait and watch till the detailed guidelines are there.
Okay.
And as I said, international education also means online inherent. So, what are the guidelines for online education and courses from foreign universities? That also needs to be seen.
No,
Previously, it was not there.
right. And I
There
think,
was hardly one pager.
right, with the, I think the final thing being on the regulation front, we have the HECI coming up with the different verticals, accreditation, standard setting regulation. So I think we will see more of that coming into the picture. And we look forward to working with you, ma'am. So in
Thank you.
terms of exploring global opportunities for research,
Sure.
research funding, and you are also a scholar, academician, and you are a PhD also, I think. So the conversation between the national and the international player becomes much more relevant, ma'am. So I do look forward to working with you on behalf of our research cell, Dayanand Sagar University. Your views on that, parting view on that?
Yeah, I will say I welcome National Education Policy 2020 from Government of India. Uh, in my 22 years uh, of professor of teaching experience and research experience, I left research only after I left teaching. Uh, to be said, till then I was active. The points, there were many points. There were many points I used to note down that this is the hiccup, this is the hiccup, this is the hiccup. This should not be there. And this national policy has addressed to all those hiccups. So very very welcome move, and we are looking that there would be challenges, but unless you take a step, there is a saying, गिरता है घुड़सवार ये मैदान में जंग में, तो घोड़ों पे चढ़ोगे नहीं तो गिरोगे कहाँ से? तो उस डर से आप ना तो पॉलिसी बनाइए, ना कुछ नया लाइए, ये इम्प्लीमेंट नहीं होगा, कैसे होगा, ये होगा वो होगा। अरे एक अच्छा मूव आया है तो उसे वेलकम कीजिए और उसमें सपोर्ट कीजिए। So I would say support with your whole heart and do whatever you can to implement it in right way. Intention should be right. It is a very good move, very good, and almost all the issues that we faced in our educationist, as a part of higher education institute, as a research scholar, all those points have been addressed and much more. And this internationalization is a very very welcome move, because with this our students would be at par with the international standards. It's not about international students coming to our soil. It's also about bringing international courses, quality standards to our students without sending them abroad.
Okay. So
So yes.
finally, ma'am, I just wanted to ask you. So from the research cell of Dayanand Sagar University, I would really look forward to working with you. At least, as you rightly said, we do have that holistic intention of global partnership. So I will be working closely with you to explore at least one such fruitful execution
Sure, my pleasure.
of international
My pleasure.
collaboration on different aspects, things which can be workable. And I think we should start with that one step, as you rightly said. There might be fallbacks, there might be some hurdles, but I think we will take it forward. So thank you so much for your time, ma'am. And
Thank you, Dr. Anupma. Thank you so much for giving this platform to explain my views. And I appreciate your efforts of bringing higher education leaders to discuss upon NEP. We get to know, different views. Uh, Thanks.